This is not my typical set. Hola, buenas noches y bienvenidos desde Marbella, España. I'm on vacation. But I saw the iPhone keynote and I thought, oh my gosh, this is so unique that I have got to make a reaction video. Also, this video is sponsored, and so I am contractually obligated to make a reaction video. But boy, what an iPhone keynote to react to, eh? Not only did we get 4 iPhones, not only did we get AirPods, but we saw something we never see from Apple, and that is a direct quote from Steve Jobs about the current state of Apple. Bold. You see, they do the one more thing every once in a while. They did it for the Vision Pro, they did it for the iPhone 10, I believe, and they do it every once in a while. But it's very seldom that they use Steve Jobs' own words to aggrandize themselves. And I saw a lot of people just absolutely blaying into Apple, making fun of him for doing this. But honestly, I was glad to see it because it's good to see that at least they talk about caring about design. Johnny Ive left several years ago. We can all pretty much agree it was a good thing. He left in his stead Evans Hankey, who was in charge of the industrial design, and then you had John Turnus on the hardware side, working together to make pretty much the best products that Apple's made in a long time. You had the Apple Silicon MacBook Pros, you had the iPhone 12 and up series of iPhone, great era. But Evans Hankey left to go work with Johnny Ive once again at the new OpenAI I/O hardware thing. What the crap is that gonna be? So anyway, at Apple, you've got John Turnus, kind of all by his lonesome. There is Alan Dye, but Alan Dye's a marketing guy. He's not an industrial designer, and he is not the VP of design at Apple. I think they need a chief design officer. Not every company does, but Apple does. And then they need a Steve Jobs type character to take the good ideas that those guys come up with, but then throw away the 99% of just absolutely ridiculous garbage ideas that they come up with. They don't have that type of person at Apple. And that's okay. I don't think they need to find a Johnny Ive today. I don't think they need to find one tomorrow. It's at least just important to see that they still care about design and they're working on it. And honestly, I think the products today look pretty good. It's an indicator that they care. But you watch, people are gonna freaking hate liquid glass. Us techie people are like, oh, it's cool. People are gonna freaking hate it. You mark my words. So let's talk about the hardware. The AirPods Pro 3. Now the AirPods Pro 2 have been my favorite Apple product for a long time, and I honestly think it's the best Apple product over the past decade. Yes, Apple Silicon is right up there, but the AirPods Pro 2, in my opinion, are the perfect product. So, what could Apple do to really improve them with the AirPods 3? Well, they've done a bunch of things, and I like most of them. Let's start with the thing that I am the most skeptical of, and that is the new custom multi-port airflow control. All headphones, all speakers, all drivers work by having a membrane, which is paper or plastic or otherwise, pull or push air. That's all a speaker does. And that creates sound waves. The thing is when you have a pair of headphones where your ear is kind of trapped and you don't have the ability for that air to escape, you get weird artifacting inside of noise, you can get inner ear discomfort. Good headphones are ported. Typically that's done at the ear tip, but with AirPods Pro, it's always been done via that vent on the side of AirPods 1 and AirPods 2. They've had active venting and passive control in the past. So what is different and new about this one? Well, they port on the inside of the headphone a channel, which is really good for 2 things. Number 1, it's great for improving bass response. And number 2, it's generally great at giving the headphones a little bit more breathability, which can improve soundstage. Soundstage is the idea that you can feel like you're in a big open room rather than having something jammed inside your ear. Now, the improved bass is something that I think a lot of people will really like. I'm not super excited about it because I think the sound signature of the AirPods Pro 2 is perfect. I think they are chef's kiss. I love that they're a little mid-heavy. I don't like the idea that the new ones will be bassier. But a lot of people love bass, and as long as Apple doesn't botch it by making that bass thick and muddy and heavy, I think it'll be fine. What I know will be great for me, but I also worry for other people, is the new foam core ear tips. Foam core tips, well, I should say foam tips, are the end game in hi-fi IEMs. You see them everywhere. They are really great at creating passive noise cancellation. They block your ear off really well because the foam expands against your ear canal. The downside to them is they run a little bit hot and they're also quite uncomfortable because they expand and create full contact against your ear canal. Now, Apple, I think, has solved the heat issue and the breathability issue by keeping silicone around them. So it's a foam core silicone tip, which is freaking amazing, and I'm so excited to try it. But the downside, or the upside, depending on how you view it, is that it will expand against the inside of your ear canal. This might cause discomfort to some people, but what will happen as a consequence of this is that there will be better passive cancellation. And this is ideal. Active noise cancellation is great. It works really, really well. But it's better to just not have to cancel noise, and by doing really good passive cancellation, you won't have to do that. You'll just have less noise to actively cancel. For people that have found discomfort by heavy pressurized ANC, this will be a big, big improvement. And I think transparency is so good, transparency mode is so good that I trust Apple to bring the outside world in than to try harder to keep the inside world out. The other thing that I think is pretty cool, especially given that I'm here in Spain, is live translation. Now, as someone who is bilingual, I speak Spanish fluently, I am very keenly aware that many figures of speech and turns of phrase don't translate well in between languages. What I liked they talked about in the keynote was that the phrase in its entirety will be considered before pumping out a translation. If you just translate word for word, you just get a bunch of gobbledygook. The problem with this is that you'll have to wait for a whole sentence to be completed before your AirPods will likely spit out the translation. And this can create some awkward moments, especially when you have the social faux pas of having headphones in to be able to communicate with someone individually. Having said that, once they become normalized, I think it will be really, really great if there are third-party APIs to use this on other platforms. Apple is saying that most of the translation will be done on device, and that is great in theory because it provides very low latency. It's fast, which is important for verbal communication. However, if they're using Apple Translate, which all reports indicate to them using, it's gonna suck for most languages. It's fine for English and French and Italian and Germanic languages like German, but I think it's really crappy for East Asian languages, Chinese, Japanese, real bad for that. DeepL and other ML, LLM-based translators are way, way, way better. And if you can use third-party app translation with the AirPods Pro, that will be fantastic. Now, IP57 as an official, like legit advertised spec is great, but also, I don't know that it's all that necessary. I dunked my AirPods Pro 2 in a swimming pool for like 2 minutes last week before I realized they were in my pocket. Oopsie daisies. The thing is, I left them to dry out for like a couple of days. I put them back in the case. I charged them up before my flight here to Spain, and I had them in my ears the whole time thinking they're gonna totally be bored. Nope, they were super totally fine. No problems whatsoever. They were completely underwater for multiple minutes, so screw IP57, IP58, dog. The last thing that I think is very, very, very cool is in-ear heart rate detection. This is gonna be great for workouts where wearing an Apple Watch is frankly inimaginable. Inconvenient. Weightlifting, running, other sports like this. Then again, I'm interested to see if this impacts Apple Watch sales because many people buy the Apple Watch specifically for fitness. Then again, who's going to wear AirPods Pro all day like a watch? Probably not many. Therefore, the Apple Watch is still valid. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. Last thing, battery life is alleged to be improved by about 33% across the board in all modes. And this is fantastic. Even though the AirPods Pro is very good at about 6 hours, on my flight here, they died mid-flight. I had to put them in the case, charge them, and I did something else for half an hour while I waited for them to kind of recharge enough such that I could use them again. And that's a little bit of a bummer. So having 8 hours, I think, is great. You're not likely gonna have them or want to have them in for more than 8 hours of a time. Good. I already got my order in for the AirPods Pro 3, and as is tradition, I will be doing a review. So get subscribed so you don't miss that. They're coming on the launch day. Oh, and they're the same price, $249. Next up, the Apple Watch. If you don't buy an Apple Watch, you will literally die. Apple always makes these like sentimental videos about how the Apple Watch saved their life. And it's a little bit corny on the surface, but honestly, it is becoming a highly accessible device, and it does so many things that it does legitimately save a lot of people's life and or notifies them of things that might be life-threatening. And I think it will get to the point, it's becoming more and more so every year, that you're like, if you don't have an Apple Watch, are you being foolish? Because it might help identify underlying conditions you have no idea about. And that's one of the things that is somewhat exciting about the new Apple Watches this year is possible hypertension detection. This is unique because it's not a new sensor. It's still using the heart rate sensor, but it's all being done algorithmically. Apple has spent a ton of money and resources with studies and also collecting anonymous data from Apple Watches to build out information on how to detect certain medical events. And they're doing so with the hardware that they already have. And it's good enough that it's being FDA certified, which is pretty wild. Detecting possible hypertension and bringing that feature to people that already have the Apple Watch is super neat. And I think that is a great addition across the board. Finally, Apple inherits a sleep score, a completely arbitrary number of questionable value. But hey, everybody else has it, and it really is something people like. Oura rings in particular will take stress into account as part of like the physiological need that sleep plays in your life. Whoop bands focus on sleep as part of recovery to let you know how hard or how not hard you should work out one day to the next. The Pixel Watch has it. It's a thing now. I'm glad to see Apple have it. It doesn't look like it's as feature complete as other devices out there, and I hope they build on it more, but having something that can gamify good sleep is a great thing, and I'm glad to see it. But more exciting to me than the Apple Watch Series 11, because honestly, who gives a crap, is the Apple Watch SE 3. The SE always is a pretty great value the year it comes out, and then an absolutely terrible value after that, and the SE 3 very much follows in those same footsteps because it gets the latest generation S10 silicon. This is in the Apple Watch Series 11, but it was actually debuted last year in the Apple Watch Series 10. But more importantly, in addition to the silicon, it brings as a consequence of said silicon an always-on display. This is huge. Thank you. We get an always-on display on the iPhone. Oh, spoiler alert. We get an always-on display on the Apple Watch SE. It also brings with it all the software features, so wrist flicks, sleep score, apnea notifications, you get wrist temperature, which is very, very nice. It does still lack physical sensors for blood ox and EKG, which is a bummer, but you gotta leave something out. And so, well, what do you take? So that's the SE3. On to the Ultra 3. I own an Ultra 1, because the Ultra 2 was stupid. I felt no reason to upgrade. And while the Ultra 3 looks neat, I also don't really see a reason to upgrade. But the features are nice if you haven't owned a previous Ultra. It inherits a slightly larger screen by shrinking the bezel, which is cool, but unnecessary. And it also inherits 1 Hz LTPO, which should improve battery life. The current generation is 10 Hz LTPO. It also gains, and this is way more exciting to me, satellite connectivity. This is huge and the first ever in an Apple Watch and a perfect fit for the Apple Watch Ultra. This is about adventuring and going out there. And if you're hiking without a phone, or you have a phone but it dies, or you drop your phone off a cliff because you're rock climbing, having satellite connectivity on your wrist is a huge game changer, and I think will literally save lives. We will see this in the future in Apple keynotes. Real stories of people that were saved from satellite connectivity. Really excited to see it. The titanium case is now 3D printed, which seems wholly unnecessary, but is very, very neat. And oh, one thing on the satellite connectivity, it was listed as being available for 2 years for free. They've been saying 2 years for free included for like forever, since satellite connectivity came out on the iPhone 14, I believe, which was more than 2 years ago. Was that on the 13? It's been a long time. It's been more than 2 years, and they just keep extending it. And they keep saying on all new products, it's free, but only for 2 years. And then it just stays free for, just take it in the teeth, Apple. And that brings us to the iPhone 17 lineup. The base iPhone never gets that much love, but last year the iPhone 16 brought with it huge improvements that made the base model iPhone no longer the iPhone minus, but like the standard base iPhone that most people should buy. And the iPhone 17 builds on that. The 16e in particular is the budget phone. The 17 is the standard. It looks pretty much the same, but it does have a slightly larger 6.3-inch display with smaller bezels, and it finally has 120 Hz Pro motion, meaning there's not just high refresh rate, but also an LTPO display that can dial itself down to 1 Hz, bringing with it an always-on display. I am so glad to see an always-on display not artificially segmented out because it's the base iPhone. This is so good to see. It's so mother-friggin' overdue. But thank you for finally adding high refresh rate to your $800 phone. It's good to see. The display gets 3,000 nits of brightness out of the OLED, which is an improvement from the 2,000 nits on prior generation Pro models. That is a lot of luminance. However, it doesn't fix my main complaint with the iPhone display. I already think even in direct sunlight that 2,000 nits is plenty bright. 3,000 is gonna be insane. My problem is that the display is out in the sun, freaking dim, so freaking dark you can barely see them after like 30 seconds because they're like, oh, I'm too hot. And if you're making those displays even brighter, they're gonna get hotter even faster, which means your display is gonna dim even further. Stop doing this. Ceramic Shield 2 is a major focus of the new iPhones. It's basically new glass from Corning that is 3 times better, according to Apple, at scratch resistance. It also has improved glare rejection. I don't think it'll probably be as fancy as like the S26 Ultra, like semi-matte display. Look for less glare reduction than that, but at least some glare reduction. I think this is great because hardness has always been a compromise in increasing shock resistance. You can either make a phone unlikely to break when you drop it or scratch proof. Like people always talk about Sapphire. Sapphire is very, very hard, very difficult to scratch, but you drop Sapphire and it shatters. Go look at a Rolex, happens all the time. So finding the balance between this is hard. I think phones have gotten so rugged, so unlikely to break from a glass standpoint, they just do not shatter anymore, that I'm looking for increased hardness, and I'm glad they finally brought it around in ceramic shield. We'll see if that comes at the expense of durability. Hopefully not. As is tradition, there is new silicon this year around the A19 series, and also as is tradition, the base model gets the regular A19, which comes with a certainly nice generational improvement, as it always does. I thought their game demo to show the gaming performance of the A19 looked hilarious because it appeared like a 10-year-old Nintendo Switch could run it, but according to Benjamin, it is actually quite a demanding game. So good to know, and it did seem to play it. The thing that I found way more interesting than the silicon is the new quick charge performance. It gets a 50% charge in 20 minutes, which is great. What wattage is that? I do not know. 3,700 milliamp hours at times 3,700. Boy, I'm bad at math. Point in case, it charges faster. Yippee. Oh, the sprinklers are turning on. This is artificial turf. I'm good here, I think. Okay, it's 2 a.m., but I couldn't sleep because I wasn't doing the math right. I've done it again, and it's 40 watts. The iPhone 17 charges at 40 watts. This is proof I'm in Spain. It says pare. Oh.
Hey, so sorry to interrupt. Just a quick editor's correction here. The 17 does get the same 16 camera, but it's not the same wide camera as the Pro. It's a smaller sensor. But the 17 does get the same ultra-wide camera as the Pros this year, which is pretty cool. All right, back to it.
And that's okay, because there is a new very exciting camera sensor, and that is the front-facing selfie camera, which has yet to have an upgrade in, well, quite some time. And the upgrade this year is special, because most sensors, like my iPad, are 4x3. They have to be compromised in at least one direction, because when you have the full sensor readout in one direction, say landscape, if I'm going to take information vertically for a portrait photo, well, I'm only getting a portion of the sensor. The selfie camera this year has moved to a square sensor, which gives it the same vertical and horizontal advantage. And this is also great because it means you no longer have to turn your phone to take a horizontal selfie. Even furthermore, Apple is using what they dubbed AI, but is frankly machine learning, to automatically identify when multiple people are in your selfie, which then says, hey, why don't you turn this to a horizontal selfie? But you don't have to rotate the camera horizontally, you just hold it vertically and it takes a horizontal full resolution selfie. This is freaking cool. And as someone with a baby who's been taking way more selfies than he ever has, I'm so excited to try this out, and it's on all iPhone 17 models, not just the Pros. That is great. Quick interruption, time for some lore. This channel, Snazzy Labs, used to be called That Snazzy iPhone Guy. What did we do on the channel? I reviewed phone cases. That was like my thing, okay? So what I'm saying is I know what makes a good phone case, and most of them are not. They're fine. But today's sponsor, Taurus, has done something that I have not seen executed this well before. They built a 360 kickstand directly into the case that's just 3 millimeters thick while retaining MagSafe functionality. And I mean truly 360. It rotates completely, locking at 90-degree intervals where you'll actually use it, and it tilts in both portrait and landscape orientations. Plus, it doubles as a grip, like an ultra-thin pop socket of sorts that doesn't make your phone impossible to pocket. It feels super durable, and Taurus claims that it can surpass 30,000 open-close cycles, so basically, it'll outlast your phone. The Q3 Air is their rugged option with 12 feet of drop protection thanks to an air cushioning system that is built into the corners. What's particularly cool to me is that the buttons are swappable. You get 2 complete sets in the box, metal ones for durability and, standard ones for everyday use. Camera control still works perfectly thanks to their capacitive insert, and as mentioned previously, the kickstand doubles as a MagSafe ring for easy charging or for snapping onto metal surfaces. The Q3 silicone is designed for those who care more about aesthetics and tactile feel. It's got the same clever stand, but it's wrapped in this liquid silicone that genuinely feels super premium. It's not that sticky rubber nonsense that Apple sells that falls apart in like 2 months. They are available for the iPhone 17 series starting today, but even if you're not upgrading to the new phones, at least upgrade your case to the Taurus Q3 using the links below. Now we get to the iPhone that has been the most hotly rumored because it's new, the iPhone Air, which is indeed the name they went with. I think this time it actually makes sense because it is the thinnest and lightest laptop, which hasn't always been the case of the MacBook Air and other Air-type devices that have been released in the past, like the iPad Air. The iPad Pro is thinner and lighter and faster and better than the iPad Air. But names don't make sense. Apple's never made sense. They did today, though. The iPhone Air is indeed crazy light, and oh my goodness, it is pretty. Interestingly, whereas all the other iPhone models, including the Pros, have moved to aluminum this year, the iPhone Air remains titanium, and I think that's because it needs the strength to be that thin, and titanium is less flexible and less malleable than aluminum. It also inherits with it ceramic shield too, not just the glass on the front that the iPhone 17 gets, but on the back as well. And Apple bragged about how this is their most durable iPhone design yet, suggesting that it might even be stronger than the iPhone's Pro, which is fascinating. Frankly, it was basically just a plea, a beg for Unbox Therapy to try to bend it, if people even watch Unbox Therapy anymore. So jerry rig everything. Zach, let's see you do your hardest. I honestly think that it will not bend. Mark my words. I'm willing to bet absolutely no amount of money that that will be the case. And John Turnus was the one talking about this new iPhone, which is interesting because John Turnus has never been, to my knowledge, in a September event. He's always talking about the Mac and the iPad, but he doesn't talk about the iPhone, but he did today. As the rumored successor to Tim Cook, seeing him in more and more places suggests that he's likely to be the real successor. Oh, which reminds me, engineering of all this stuff seems bananas difficult, which begs the question, why do it? Buenos dias, it's the next day, and last night I had a vision, a dream. I was thinking, if the iPhone Air has got but one speaker, and it does, it's got all of its components mashed in the very top half of the phone. It's got a big old battery, one camera on the back, and it's called iPhone Air, not iPhone 17 Air, just iPhone Air. Well, this is the precursor to the folding phone that's forthcoming, right? This is a practice, a trial, an experiment. Is this going to be a one-off device that we'll only ever see one of? Honestly, yeah, maybe. When you think of it that way, the concessions start to make a lot more sense. Also coming to the iPhone Air is the Pro version of the A19. Now this seems a bit counterintuitive because you might think that the Pro version is going to consume more power and thus it should not be placed in the phone that will be power and thermally limited. But Apple is saying that the low-end cores in the A19 Pro are more efficient and more powerful than the standard A19, and that I think explains why it's here in a phone that will surely have mid-battery life, particularly because despite expectation, they did not talk about silicon carbide or any new battery technology. It just sounds like it's the standard battery cells Apple's been using in this phone, and battery life is going to be but. Speaking of battery life, they said it would have all-day battery life. But what does that mean? Literally, that means nothing. They've been saying that since the iPhone 4. And the fact that they didn't denote how many hours it will last is very frightening to me. I think battery life is going to be a real stinker in this phone. But again, that's not the point. It's to be thin. And I guess if it charges fast, well, who cares? Oh, I know, me. Also helping with power efficiency, the new Apple N1, which is a system-in-package for radio communications. So it integrates the Apple C1X, which is an evolution of the Apple C1 that shipped in the iPhone 16e earlier this year, a 5G modem, in addition to Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 6, and Thread. All of these radios on one package, which is really cool. Goodbye, Qualcomm, which has been the more dependable option for a number of years, but also the more consumptive. Inasmuch as this is as reliable as Qualcomm's modems have been in the iPhone, and that really does remain to be seen, this should be a great improvement because 30% power efficiency savings is significant, especially considering that these radios consume more power than you might initially expect them to. The camera story is a little bit more disappointing, however, because there is but one camera. Well, two, I suppose, if you include the front-facing camera, the same one that the iPhone 17 gets. But on the back, you get just one camera. It is the base wide camera that is on all phones. And yeah, it's just one camera. They kept saying, oh, it's a total of 4 lenses in your pocket because of the weird digital zoom thing they do with the 48 megapixel, 12 megapixel crop. But just because you crop a sensor doesn't mean you're getting more lenses. It's not more lenses. It's one lens that you can kind of convincingly zoom up on. Stop saying that. Don't do that. However, dual capture video is coming, and it's kind of cheesy, but honestly a bit fun. This has been offered by third-party camera apps for a long time, but I can see people really liking it and using it if it's built into the default app. Oh yeah, back to the whole modem thing. eSIM is now the default on all iPhone models globally. Now you might be thinking if you're in the US, wait a minute, that's always been the case for like the last few years. No. We didn't have a SIM tray, but the rest of the world did. They're gone now, everywhere. And the benefit to this is we actually get that space back by way of battery. This is the thing that sucked about not having a SIM tray in the US, is they just filled that little cavity inside the phone with a little blank square. There was a slot there for the rest of the world, and for our region, they were like, no, but they didn't put anything else. They just put a dummy little stupid placeholder there. Dumb. Now that thing is gone, it is filled with battery, and that is great. I know some people hate eSIM, but it's really not that big of a deal. Most carriers are getting pretty good at it. It was really nice just loading international data SIM super easily before I got on the plane in the airport. And if it means I get more battery, especially on this phone that is going to get terrible battery, I'll take it. Helping aid the woes of the presumably terrible battery, and the reason I keep saying presumably terrible is Apple kept suggesting that the battery life features in iOS 26 were going to help this phone. They're like, oh, there's adaptive low power mode, so when you're using more power than normal, it will automatically cut down the refresh rate and the boost clock of the processor inside the phone. It'll do all these things. It'll make your phone worse to save battery, because the battery's gonna be bad. They wouldn't say that unless that were the case. And alongside this phone, they announced a new low-profile MagSafe battery. I did not realize that the new MagSafe battery only works with the iPhone Air. Yeah, only with the iPhone Air, which is proof that the battery sucks, because you don't announce a phone and say, all-day battery life, but isn't it really great we have adaptive power? And also, there's this thing that only works with this phone to extend the battery, but the battery's really good. It's gonna be bad. Here's the thing, set expectations, because Anchor, for example, has a new MagSafe Slim battery that is 5,000 milliamp hours at 3.7 volts. And it adds only about 20 to 30% battery life to the iPhone 16 Pro because of the inefficiency of Qi. They just get so freaking hot. That's not nothing, but that's also not great. No thanks. And yet, I really want it. I know I should buy the Pro, but I really want the Air. Let's talk about the Pro, because it is actually a pretty good upgrade this year. But I have a nit to pick real quick about this, because make the intro video about material as fancy as you would like, but aluminum is absolutely a way to save money and cut costs while keeping the price point of the phone the same. And that's okay. Aluminum has a lot of benefits, like thermal conductivity, which will be important, as we'll talk about in a minute, and its weight. It is very light. I love aluminum. I think it's better than titanium. But don't talk about it like it's the best material ever, and oh, we're moving back to aluminum because it's fantastic. No, it's because it's cheaper, and that's fine, but just own it. At least aluminum can be colored and make some cool colors because of anodization, and oh my goodness, that orange looks so good. When there were rumors of an orange Pro phone coming out last week, I'm like, yep, it's gonna be ugly, boring bronze. But no, it's real orange and it looks great. And now we get to the new thermal system, which again is made possible by that aluminum case. And of course, a vapor chamber. And I am so glad they just called it what it is instead of making up some stupid new name. These have been in Android phones for years. They work really well, and it should help a lot, especially since, again, aluminum is significantly more thermally conductive than titanium is. Also, like the iPhone Air before it, it does not have a SIM tray, which means an even bigger battery. Apple highlighted this in the keynote, and also the dimensions of the case suggest it's a little bit thicker. Probably partly because aluminum, but also probably partly because there is a legitimately bigger battery. If the phone is lighter overall, because aluminum is lighter than titanium, make up for that weight by adding bigger battery in, and it looks like they've done that. Thank you so much. This is gonna be great, because these phones are already big and heavy. Who cares? Give us battery, especially since the iPhone Air exists. For weirdos that don't want battery but want light stuff, go buy the iPhone Air. I might be one of those people, I don't know, but this is a good thing to see. Also making up a fair amount of weight, the camera system in the iPhone 17 Pro, which gets even better.
Hello, another note at midnight. The 17 Pro has the same exact camera as the 16 Pro, as well as the ultra wide is the same exact camera as the 16 Pro. The only new camera is the telephoto, and I'll let Quinn tell you about that.
On the ultra-wide, it looks like things are mostly unchanged. This is a bummer, because I've always thought that the ultra-wide is a pretty sucky camera, the worst of the three by a long shot, and that is particularly true this year because we have a new telephoto. The iPhone 16 Pro, as you'll recall, has a 5x 120mm equivalent zoom. This year, on the 17 Pro, they've backed off just a little bit and given us a 48 megapixel f2.8 1.4 micron quad pixel 100mm lens, which I think is honestly amazing. 100mm is more common in photography than 120, and if it means that we get a much better picture, which the specs are suggesting that we will, great. As a consequence of that, they're also adding a crop camera. This is a 12 megapixel 200 millimeter zoom, which I don't think will look super spectacular, but it does match the mega ultra zoom that is found on other Android cameras of this era. The iPhone Air starts at $999, placing it exactly where the iPhone Pro has historically been. The iPhone Pro is moving up in price $100, but kind of, sort of, a little bit not really. Because while it is $1,099 starting, it comes with 256 gigs of storage as opposed to 128 in the year prior. And so it is $100 more, but you get the same capacity that you would have last year. Then again, storage gets cheaper, so it's not really like they're doing you favors, but you're not getting boned. And well, the iPhone 17 Pro Max, completely unchanged in price. So good, across the board. And so that brings us to the question that matters to you more than anything else in the world. Quinn, what phone are you going to buy? I know you couldn't care less, but I use the iPhone Pro, and I've been pretty happy with it for the last several years. I will say that I had a love affair with the iPhone 12 mini during the pandemic, and I loved it, but that's because I was home and I could charge it all day long. As soon as I went out into the real world, I was like, yeah, the battery on this phone sucks, and I did not buy an iPhone 13 mini, though my heart wanted and desired it. I bought the Pro, because frankly, I want the cameras and the battery inside the Pro, and that's why I do not think I should buy the Air, but I am so tempted. The Air is going to have totally terrible battery life because it's not new battery technology, it's the same old battery. It's a smaller battery than this with a larger display, and it's running iOS 26, which has been pretty bad in the battery life department. Now you could say, Quinn, come on, you're running a beta. Be fair to Apple. But to be fair to Apple, it's beta 9. This software ships next week. I don't think they're going to make massive battery improvements in the next 10 days. Like, we're getting iOS 26 as it basically exists today. And iOS 26 as it basically exists today, battery life is poo-poo on my iPhone 16 Pro, which makes me very worried for the prospect of owning an iPhone 17 Air. In addition to the bad battery, I want more than one camera because I have a beautiful baby and I take pictures of her all the time. And the new telephoto sounds so good. So I'm going to get the Pro, or maybe not. Maybe I get the Air. But maybe I get the Pro. But maybe I get the Air. In any case, it's 12:17 a.m. and I need to freaking go to bed. Thank you, Apple, for the fun, but good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. I guess it'll be tomorrow when this video comes out, but it'll be today for you, but tomorrow or the day after, what is time? Thanks so much for watching, and as always, stay snazzy.